evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Tonight is the March 14, 2024 Town Board Work Session. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So tonight's our work session, so I usually don't have any announcements. I saved that for the voting meeting. Tonight we have two items to discuss. First, we have our one of our town engineers, George Cronk, with us. George, how are you?
Doing good this evening. How are you?
Good, thank you. So we do have multiple water and sewer projects going on in the town. The town has been very fortunate to get multiple grants in different areas, and George is going to give us a whole overview on several of the projects and how we have to merge some of the projects to become one, and see where we get the funding and how we utilize the grant. So I thought it would be a nice time for George to do that, since a lot of things are coming to a head right now. So George?
Thank you. Let's get the first couple. So we're going to break this presentation into three parts. We're going to cover some of our water projects, some of our sanitary sewer projects, and then some future projects that we have on the list. And some of those future projects are in the planning stages, and we want to dispel any maybe false information that gets out in the community about what a project is or isn't. An internal project we've been working on is updating our mapping so that we have more accurate mapping that we can use in our internal GIS system. It shows both our water and sewer system. This happens to be all of our different water districts. We have 15 districts at this time. We're going to get into the details about some of these districts, but one of the things that's been very helpful internally is when we start looking at expanding a district or maybe connecting to a district, we have a better understanding of what pipe sizes we have and where they're located. So it makes, for planning purposes, much better, especially for the folks working on the master plan. So I'm going to run through a bunch of projects. Not all these projects are going to have images or attachments to go with them, but one of the projects that we have to complete by the end of this year in October is a lead service inventory. This is a mandatory inventory that every single municipality or every single water district has to submit to the local health department. Those health departments then take all that information and pass it on to the state, and the state compiles that information to get an understanding of how many lead or partially lead service lines you may have in your water systems. We are about 30 to 40% into the project. We still have a ways to go with it. As we complete each district, we do submit that information to the health department. Taconic Estates, that was an emergency repair we did last fall. We have a little bit of cleanup work that's going to start working out there in April. Basically removing some temporary piping, some finish grading, loam and seed in some areas like that, but mostly just cleanup work. Everything out there has been installed and appears to be working in good order. We are about halfway through what we call the West Campus Water District. This is an extension that's running along Patriot Way, and that will service the new warehouse building that's under construction right now on Patriot Way. So it's the building closest to Route 52, if you see that out there. We still have to complete the water testing of the pipe out there, but generally speaking, we're mostly complete with that project as well. A project that we've been working on throughout the town is, we started this last year, and we put a lot more effort into it. This year is we're doing fire hydrant testing, and that will be followed up with more maintenance on the hydrants once we have a good inventory of all the hydrants in all the districts. Just for clarity, not every hydrant that you see on the street is necessarily a fire rated or emergency fire event type hydrant. Some of those hydrants are there for maintenance purposes of the district itself, such as flushing or other needs. If you've lived in the town for a while, you know that there are some areas where the hydrants need a little more TLC, such as painting and re-greasing and possibly putting new innards back in the hydrants themselves. So that's an ongoing project, but we're looking to get all of the hydrants into our GIS system this year so that we have a good inventory of what we have and what the conditions of all those are. So you'll see through a lot of our districts as the year goes on, you'll see our crews out there opening hydrants, flushing them. They'll be attaching pressure gauges, et cetera, to them to determine what the flows are out of them. Four Corners Water Treatment Plant number 2. This is the water treatment plant that is off of Phillips Road, or Phillips Road, I believe. And that is the driveway that runs along the stream edge where there's a pedestrian bridge that crosses over to the enclave area. Last year we had some flood damage to that area. We're working with FEMA on getting some funding for that so that we're not costing the district any significant amount of cost. We're going to be making repairs to that driveway relatively shortly, so we're in a good position with that. This year we're going to reconfigure or redo the driveway for the Four Corners storage tank. It's got a lot of ruts that have developed over the years on that, so we're going to, again, while we're out doing work in the Four Corners area, we want to get that driveway repaired so that we can get, if we need to get large trucks in there, we can. As you may remember, a couple years ago, we did a fair amount of work in that area relining that tank, so this is just kind of one of the last steps that was needed to complete that project. And then we are replacing all of the master meters at the Four Corners water treatment plants, and these are there's 2 main meters for each plant, and these are the meters that document or record how much water comes out of our wells out there. The meters are a little bit older. We're finding that one meter in particular, we're not agreeing with the numbers that are coming out of it versus how much water is being used in the district. Like many things in the past few years, it does seem to take a long time to get certain elements or components in to do a project, so it's more of a waiting project to get the meters to come in. But once they're in, we'll be able to install them relatively quickly and be back to recording very, very accurate water usage. I'm going to talk a little bit about the iPark project, which is really the Route 52 commercial water district. I think some folks here from the audience may be interested in that. On the next slide, and then we also have what we call the DWSRF 18090 project, which has been called in the past the Interconnection Project, which includes the Hopewell West Water District. So I know some folks are interested about that, so we did break a separate slide for each of those. So for the iPark project, also known as the Route 52 Commercial Water District, we have secured a $2 million grant from Senator Schumer's federal allocations, and that's been passed and approved by the federal government. I don't know how closely you watch budget allocations at the federal level, but everything has been approved, so that's good. And we've broken the project up into 3 phases. Last fall, we did a larger presentation about some of the details of the project, so I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter. Phase 1 includes the construction of the meter building. So this is the meter building that's directly tapped to the water that we get from Dutchess County Water. And that building is about 75% complete right now. We're going to be looking to commission that shortly and get our Department of Health approvals on that. While the Frito-Lay building was in construction, we worked with the builder and the owner of that property to extend a 12-inch water main to the far side of his property, or their property. That water main is in the ground. It has been tested, and again, it's just waiting Department of Health certification. So we envision that within the next month or so, we should be able to authorize the Frito-Lay facility or the PepsiCo building authorization to start using water at that location. And they have to go through their rest of their processes for their C of Os. Phase 2 of the project is the design and construction of the water storage tank and booster pump system. So one of the items that we're trying to achieve with this water system is to provide water at a higher pressure than what it comes into the facility at. So We have several projects that are being considered around the perimeter of the existing facility, as well as possibly some of the properties in the existing facilities that would receive water from this water main system. So obviously the engine behind it, in a sense, is getting a water storage tank and booster system in place first. Third phase is the construction of the water main or water line loop that actually runs around the property. And basically that water line alignment is running on the south, east, west portions of the existing roads that are already out there. Obviously, for the most part, we're going to be off on the side of the road, but that's the general alignment. And as part of that third phase, we're also doing an interconnection with another water line system that's located out in the Route 52 corridor. And that is so that we have the ability to have a redundant water supply in the event that we have an emergency. I don't know if people remember, but years ago there was a fire over at the GAP facility in Fishkill, and if they had had their redundant sources connected to them at that time, maybe the damages wouldn't have been as severe as they were. So we're trying to learn from their event and make our events as safe as, or our facilities as safe as possible. Phase one of the water line or water main loop is going to be completed this spring in 2024. Phase two is in design right now. Looking to have a set of design plans to the health department this year, get everything approved, and looking to be in construction after that. And then obviously phase three, those plans will also go in at the same time this year, but that construction would follow after the storage tank and the boosters are built, unless there's other circumstances that changes the schedule need there.
And just so everybody remembers, we've been talking about this a long, long time ago, when iPark was looking to expand development there. IBM had one system that interconnected all the buildings. Fast forward, we've had development on that campus, and the health department, the town, IBM, On Semiconductor now, everybody wants to see it separated so that On Semiconductor could run their water separately from whatever new development comes into that campus. So this was the plan. We are finally implementing it, and as the engineer stated, we have several phases to do, and we are still looking for grant dollars to complete those as well. But just keep in mind, of course, as all these projects we're discussing tonight, the dollars are borne by the specific water or sewer district that we're discussing.
Thank you. Second project I want to highlight is the DWSRF 18090 project. This is what most people are referring to as the Hopewell West Water Project, but it did include a significant portion of interconnections to bring the water source to the Hopewell West Water District. This was formerly the Worley Water District when it was privately owned. We did receive a $3.1 million grant on that project, which has allowed us to keep the water rates at a reasonable level for that water district. It's paid for a good portion of that project. Phase one of this project is complete. That's phase 1 and 2, I should say, of this project is complete. Those were the interconnections on Route 376, as well as the interconnection to Hopewell West and Revere Park. That stuff has all been completed. It's all online. It's been in operation for at least a year now. As a result of that work being completed, we were able to increase the water pressure specifically in the Hopewell West Water District from about 35 PSI to about 51 PSI. We found if we go above the 51 PSI, the older pipe in the district in certain sections is failing, and we're getting consistent water breaks. So we've been able to hold a 51 PSI pressure in there, so hopefully most homeowners have seen certainly an increase in their water pressure there. Phase 3 is active right now. Phase 3 includes the meter installation program. We're about 110 meters completed out of the 144, so we're in my opinion, we're doing pretty well right now. If you don't have your meter installed yet, please contact us to make an appointment. We'll get folks out there. It usually takes a couple hours for them to install the meter. It's relatively invasive, so it's won't cause a lot of damage to your property or anything of that nature, but we do need to get these meters installed. We will be coming out with our billing rates, so once we have enough meters installed, we will be switching from a fixed base water invoice to a usage-based system. So right now, you pay the exact same amount every single quarter, no matter how much water you use. And in the future, the idea is to get everybody to a usage-based system. I don't have those numbers yet because we have not finished working up those details. But we will be sending out a letter sometime this summer or early fall with that information. This would not go into effect until the 2025 year. That's our goal right now. But again, we are still looking for more meters to be installed to implement this next phase of the billing process here. The other component of phase 3 is the demolition of the 3 water plants that were taken offline as a result of this project. So this is, if you live over off of Brown Road, you've seen some very large tanks removed from that facility. That's the Brettview water treatment plant that was decommissioned a couple years ago when we started this work. And all of that is being removed at this point. All the remnants, I should say, are being removed from that point, and the wells are being abandoned, and when you drive by, there'll be basically just grass. We're also doing the same off of the Revere Park water system, which is off of Lake Walton Road, as well as the small plant that was located in the center of the Worley in the Hopewell West Water District. So one of our requirements with the grant money we received was to remove these facilities from each of the respective districts that they're in. We should be done with that work probably within the next 60 days or so. Phase 4 is the last phase for this project. It's the largest cost phase of all the projects, about $2.2 million worth of the total project funds. And this is to replace the water line system, water pipes that are out in the Hopewell West area. The plans are currently with the Department of Health for review. They take at least 60 days to review plans, if not longer these days. So we're looking to hopefully go out to construction this summer, and we would be, we'd go out to bid this summer, and we'd be in construction this fall. That would be the ideal situation. This summer, we are also working independently on a drainage project in the same vicinity, so in the same Hopewell West district. The bids for that project, we're bidding out all the materials. The bids for that project will be hopefully be approved at the next town board meeting. And the highway department is planning to do that work this summer to install the various drainage upgrades that they're doing out there. Once all of the work is done, whether it's water or drainage out in this district, we will then perform the permanent or the final paving for this area. I know that's been one of the big questions on everybody's mind is, when are we paving this district? Our plan is to have this paved in the fall of 2025. Obviously, there are a couple things here that could change that schedule, but our goal is to try and get it wrapped up before the end of the 2025, so that when winter comes, we're in a good situation for that neighborhood. And we do appreciate the patience for the folks in that neighborhood. I know that the paving specifically has been a question we receive often. So. Just a quick graphic on this one. The area in the purple is the prime area that we will be looking to replace the water pipes. The blue lines are other pipes throughout the district. We had to, we only have so much budget. We chose the areas where we have the most water breaks in the system out there, or we have very undersized pipes. We typically install at least an 8-inch water line, and some of these areas have 3-inch water lines. So I would imagine as people are using the water in those areas, just because of the small pipe, they're, once they start using the water, they see very low pressures when they're using it. So increasing these water pipe sizes alone will hopefully better your consistent rate of flow to your home, or better pressure to your home. So we do have a couple projects in design that are going on in the background that are going to be officially starting to be planned at some point. We just don't have an exact start date because we're still in design phase. So the first project that we have is the Fishkill Plains well number 3. So well number 3 was actually drilled many years ago, I would say 8 to 10 years ago at this point. It does require treatment because it is a Gwitty well. As we've done work at the Fishkill Plains water plant, we've been accommodating this well to come online at some point. So the last phase here is to put in the microfiltration that's needed for this well. And we're still waiting on Department of Health approval for a final approval of this. Once we have that, we'll be in a position to determine when we start implementing this. The Little Switzerland Water District this past winter, we had a windstorm that dropped a very large tree on the water plant. Fortunately, it did not actually damage the wells or the ability to distribute water to the district. However, it severely damaged the structure itself of the water plant. So we have a temporary tarp over the top of the roof. That's not a good long-term solution. So we are looking to get get a contractor in there to make those repairs in there. At the same time, we're going to look at the generator that's located inside that plant. It was installed and then the structure was built around the generator. So we may look at either making a wider doorway to get into the generator if we ever need to remove it, or possibly doing a generator upgrade at some point. So. And the last project I'm going to talk about for water is the DWSRF 19167, which is going to be on the next few slides. This project took about 3 years worth of effort applying for various grants to the state of New York before we got an award, and we just got an award here a couple months ago. Supervisor mentioned it, I think, at the January town board meeting. So we'll get right into what that project is. So this project is officially called a Water Source and Multiple Interconnections Project. That's how the state has listed it. We received a $5 million WIA grant to help support this project, as well as a $2 million Congressman Lawler allocation grant. Both grants have come through, and they've both been very helpful because this is a project that could use grants to help keep the cost down. So the project is broken up into 5 phases. The first phase is the Pinewood Knolls Interconnection Project, and this is actually in design right now. So the Pinewood Knolls Water District is a relatively small water district. There's about 44 users or homes in this district. It's one of our older systems. We inherited this back I think in the 80s, early 80s. It was constructed back in the 60s. So it's an older system, and it had 2 wells in there, and they've consistently been, we've been sampling the water over there as we do with all of our districts. But unfortunately, these wells have had an emerging contaminant problem where at times we are exceeding the MCL. So we've been working with the state and the county as to solutions to resolve the PFAS levels we have over there. And the most viable solution that we've come up with is to no longer use the wells and to make an interconnection to the water main that belongs along Route 82. That's the Hopewell North Water District. This project also includes doing an extension to the Clove Branch Apartments. Their wells are in the same vicinity, and they have the exact same problems that our wells have. So we're trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with this project. Phase 2 of the project is, again, when we were testing for emerging contaminants, the Hamlet wells, we had 4 wells that we turned off over there about 3 years ago now. And we're looking to install an ion exchange treatment system over there. A lot of people use a GAC system, or a granulated activated carbon system. We're looking at an ion exchange treatment system there for a bunch of different reasons. But we are, one of the main reasons we like it is the cost is much less. But we're going to look to bring those wells back online when we have high flows and need to use those wells. That water source is what's also being used to help feed the Pinewood Knolls Water District through the water there. So these two projects were very, very important when we applied for our grants. These projects scored most of our points for getting a grant. So obviously, more points you score, the better chance you have of receiving money. And these two projects were high on the list of getting our points that we needed for the project. To expand our point basis, we did add in some other components to the project. We're going to run through those. That's phase 3, 4, and 5. So phase 3 is completing an interconnection to the Little Switzerland, Beekman, and the Hopewell North water districts. I've got a map here I'll show you in a second. Phase 4 includes installing a well at the Beekman facility, and then replacing the generator, as well as upgrading the building itself is in need of significant repair at this point. And then some work to our storage tank if we need it up there. So a bunch of improvements for Beekman. Beekman really has benefited a lot from this grant opportunity that we have. If we didn't have this grant opportunity, Beekman would be paying for a lot of these, improvements with no matching funds. So it's very helpful for them. And then phase 5 is the interconnection from the Beekman facilities over to Four Corners, and that's going to run down Beekman Road. And again, I have a quick slide I'll show about that. The schedules for this project runs from 2024 all the way to the end of 2026. This is obviously an ideal schedule. If we get bogged down with permitting and approvals or some other unknown entity, it will slow down our process. But one of the things we've learned, and I think probably most municipalities have learned in the last few years, is time is not your friend when inflation is high. So we're trying to get this work out the door as quickly as possible so we can get the best value for our money. So quick overview of these sites. This is the Pinewood connection. You can see that red line that runs up through the center of the screen. That's Route 82. We're going to run down Mary Lane and then connect in on the backside into the same lot where the existing water plant is located right now. So it's a relatively easy connection. And then out on the Clove Branch at the downward or bottom side of the screen here, and the yellow highlight there, that's the small extension to get over to the Clove Branch apartments. As I mentioned earlier, this is the interconnection for the 3 districts, Switzerland, Beekman, and Hopewell North. All those districts come together literally right there on the same parcel. So we just have to figure out how to configure our pipes and make sure that the pressures and flows work for all of our districts. But the purpose of this is to allow for redundancy through these other districts. It's not that we're going to, on a regular basis, start taking water from one district to another. This is purely a backup project. And again, it got us some points with scoring for our grant. The state, just like the town, is looking for redundant water sources. And then the last big phase of the project is the interconnection that would go from the Beekman district over to the Four Corners. So at the end of Noah Way, when that project was built, there was stubbed out with a pipe at the end of the intersection there on Beekman Road. And we will be able to run a pipe from one location over the other, make that interconnection. And this will allow the Four Corners Water District to finally resolve the inadequate water supply that we have for that district. And this has been an ongoing problem for a long time. This will bring enough water to that district to resolve any Department of Health, source violations that we have right now, as well as provide water for irrigation needs and that nature. Just on a quick note, we will be doing I'm sure the supervisor will mention again, we will be doing a public hearing at the April town board meeting. And we will be voting specifically on these projects, but more importantly, we're going to go through the financial details of these projects at that meeting. Exactly how much money we were able to allocate from all the grants, as well as what will be bonded in each of the districts moving forward.
Yes, it'll be a public hearing, and we will be advertising it. We'll be setting the public hearing at the March voting meeting, so.
Yeah. Just on a side note, we're very excited we got this grant. It was very hard to get. We did a lot of work, made a lot of phone calls to all the right people, hopefully, in this case, to get this grant to come through. And, we've been looking for a long time for a good solution for Four Corners, and we finally have one that seems reasonable enough in cost to solve the problem there. So I'm going to move on to our sanitary sewer districts. Not quite as busy as the water districts, if you remember that slide familiar. But we do have we have 5 sewer districts and 1 water improvement or sewer improvement area. So I'm going to just cover a couple of the highlights on these. In the Hopewell Hamlet, we recently completed a ventilation upgrade to the main water wastewater treatment plant, which is almost right across the street from here. It's very important to keep these ventilation systems in good working order. It extends the longevity of all the equipment inside, as well as it minimizes any type of odor that can surround a wastewater plant. We also did some upgrades at the John Jay pump station. That's the main pump station that provides pumping from the entire sewer improvement area over to the IBM treatment plant. So it's a very critical component of the system. We were able to upgrade the pumps and allow for additional flow, including folks like the new warehouse that are going in over there. We will be looking at another upgrade for that facility down the road as we look at the Route 52 corridor expansion, which is another long-term project we're looking at. But these pumps are maximized out at this point here. And that was the original design when it was all constructed. So, the Hopewell Hamlet, if folks have driven by Route 82, they've seen the old Joe's Mother Road property under construction at this point. Part of that project is to make an interconnection from that property all the way over to where Hopewell Bagels is, and they will be taking advantage of using the Hopewell Hamlet Sewer District. I don't have a date when they're going to start the actual construction of the water district improvements or the wastewater district improvements, but I'm sure they're focused on getting their building foundation in first. The Sagamore Water District, Town Board recently authorized a project to install a dechlorination system at the effluent discharge side of the wastewater plant. That project is in construction at this point. We're hoping to have that complete in the next 3 months, if not sooner. And then we're going to have about a 6 to 9 month gap when the permit changes over at the end of the year to make sure that everything's operating correctly. So we're very good timing on that project. While we're in there doing the work for the dechlorination system, we're also going to replace 2 transfer pumps that are, one has been failing on us and the other one is both about the same age, so it's starting to get ready to be aged out. At Four Corners, the lower lift station, which is again down off of Moore Road, we found a leak or a crack, I should say, in the concrete wet well that is allowing groundwater to enter into the pump station over there. So we're actually, we have an infiltration issue going on at that location. So we're working right now with a couple contractors on a way to make that repair without having an excessively large cost to it. But it is something that we need to resolve. It's not, it's certainly not impacting us from continuing with our day-to-day operations, but we don't want to defer this down the road forever. Also over at Four Corners, we have scheduled this year the ventilation repairs to that wastewater plant. So folks may remember about 10 years ago, town did some repairs to that wastewater treatment plant because of poor ventilation, I think, at that time. We're at the point where we've got to do some more repairs. Unfortunately, these ventilation systems, they're in somewhat corrosive environments, so they do get, repaired or replaced more often than a typical ventilation system would be. And then we've noticed that we've had an increase in our effluent flows at our Beekman wastewater treatment plant. And so we're seeking proposals from a couple of our engineering firms right now to do an I&I study to see where we're getting this influent from. And it's obviously related to storm events, storm rainfall events, and narrow down where this, where the problems or the leaks are coming into the system. It could be as simple as manhole covers are allowing stormwater water to get into the sewer manholes, or it could be as bad as cracks or breakage in a pipe or a manhole. But until we do the study to find out where the problems are, we can't recommend a solution to fix it. So hopefully we'll be back in front of you this fall with some answers. So some projects on the horizon. I mentioned the DW SRF 19146. Although we have the project mapped out in our different phases, there's a lot of smaller approvals and steps that will need to be taken to complete that project. So we'll probably over the next couple of years hear that at various town board meetings, and certainly as we go through our approval processes and construction phases. We are evaluating a water supply project for the old Hopewell area. Looking at trying to get some grants for some of the properties in that area right now. Again, these are projects on the horizon. There's no commitment beyond looking at them and providing a study for them right now.
And so if people understand where Old Hopewell is, that's right inside the hamlet here, right on 376 when you take the left by Frankie's Superette and go down that way by the railroad tracks, by the Hopewell Depot. That whole area is called Old Hopewell. That was the original hamlet.
Very much like the 19146 project, we are trying to secure as much grant funding as we can for this project and this location before we make a decision if we want to move forward with the project, so that, again, so it brings the cost more in line with the residences of that area. Grants are a year-round event, and working very closely with our grant writer to get all the materials together and get them submitted on time. I mentioned the Beekman I&I study. The hamlet, we have noticed a little bit of an uptick when we have storm events, even in the hamlet. So we may be pursuing an I&I study, but the priority right now is the Beekman wastewater facility first, and then we'll go back to the hamlet. There's been a lot of talk about the Montage Summit project. Those are some housing subdivision projects over in the Stormville area off of Route 52. We are exploring various options for their water and sewer. One of the options that we're considering would be to run a water or a sanitary force main that would run from that facility up to the Hamlet wastewater treatment plant. There are a lot of secondary benefits that would benefit the town for that, but it's in discussion only at this point. So again, it's something that might be on the horizon. The John Jay Sewer Improvement Area I mentioned earlier, we would like to be able to extend that sewer down Route 52 towards the soccer complex and a couple of commercial parks in there, subdivision parks in there. Allow folks to connect into the system out there. Again, this is in a study phase right now, certainly not funded or approved by the town board at this time. We're considering a sanitary grant, which would be a WIA clean water grant for some upgrades at the Hamlet wastewater treatment plant. We're at an interesting point here that if the Montage Summit project ends up connecting to the plant, as well as any other growth that may occur in the area, it's really a good time to make our upgrades before our effluent levels get higher than they are. We've also seen a significant number of changes in permits over the last few years with the DEC, especially on streams that have Class C or Class CT for the effluent discharge. So we may consider doing an upgrade as we're getting that permit change from the DEC. So again, we're just studying it at this point. And then last but certainly not least, there's been discussion about the covered bridge, Devon Farms, Four Seasons, and Sagamore privately owned water systems. We are in the process right now at looking at possibly the town taking ownership of those. It's a very long process. We're doing an initial evaluation of those facilities right now to see what kind of condition they're in. Also looking to get an appraisal of what the value of those systems are, so that we can have further discussions with the owners of those systems. So again, with all these projects, as we get more information, we'll be back in front of the town board to discuss them. And that's it.
That's it? You sure? You don't want to go on a little bit more? No, thank you, George. Excellent work as always. It's a lot going on. There's a lot. I mean, he made it very simple, but you know, we deal, him and I, and the engineer, attorney, controller, we deal with this every day, so it's very easy to pick an area, what we're doing and explain it, but it's very, very complicated, actually. A lot of moving parts. Our engineering department does a great job, so I can't thank you enough. Our consultants as well, they do a lot of work. So we will be discussing all these in different, at different points of the year. We'll be having different public hearings. Like the engineer said, that we will be having a huge interconnection project, and next in April we will be having a public hearing to explain how that will affect anybody in those districts and what the costs associated with that will be. So just look out for that. We will be advertising that, obviously. That will be the April voting meeting. Any comments from the board or questions for the engineer?
I would just say thank you, George, and I appreciate the work that you've been doing with the Comprehensive Master Plan Committee, because so much of what you do, the infrastructure for water and sewer, is such a key part of what we're looking at as we develop our master plans. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Yep.
George, as far as there was a well at Four Corners that had some discoloration,
Yeah.
and we'll try to see how we're going to deal with that. Do you have any updates on that, or?
So it's well 1A. That's the well that we basically started seeing problems, say, about a decade ago. We've been able to eliminate several ways that could treat the water source, the poor water quality there. We, to date, do not have a treatment methodology that will successfully treat that water. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be something, you know, someday in the future, but it's very hard to keep going back to the Department of Health and say, keep waiting, keep waiting, keep waiting. And that's why I think this interconnection that we're bringing in it's a real solution right now.
Even blending, right, wouldn't work.
They won't allow us to blend.
And it's too bad, because that was a good performing well.
Right.
If I remember.
And that's what's also been very crippling about it, is it was, I think, the best well out there as far as the volume of production. Unfortunately, the water quality is very poor.
Right. And if you remember, we couldn't even use that for irrigation because it's all interconnected into one system. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've learned from that mistake. So, you know, the folks that are doing the Montage Summit project and even the Hopewell Glen project that were built after that, we've required them to put in a separate irrigation system if they want to irrigate, so that, you know, if we have a problem, first of all, we can reduce the amount of water we use very easily, but more importantly, if you can provide irrigation and you don't have to treat it and go through the entire process, it's much less expensive water. So Hopewell Glen, in my opinion, has benefited from that, because they use a set of wells on site for most of their irrigation, and it's very low-cost water for them.
So George, moving forward, we're going to have 2 water lines on the street, one for domestic drinking water and one for irrigation and whatever else?
As of right now, it's up to the developer if they want to provide that. So I'll use the Montage Summit project as an example. If they elect, the developers there elect not to do irrigation, it will actually be a deed restriction on each parcel, so that when a home buyer goes to purchase that property, they're aware of that limitation on there. So again, it's a decision by the developer. We don't mandate you irrigate. In fact, New York State controls or permits all water to be used, and their druthers is not to use water for irrigation. So
So the answer is yes. If they want irrigation, it'll be a separate system.
yeah.
I just think it might be good to point out that with these systems, when they're designed and built, it's usually the health department only who is involved in the water systems or sewer systems. And obviously, we have found that the health department is only concerned about having enough potable water, and they don't really take into account the fact that there could be substantial irrigation demands, et cetera. And also, the town has not, the only water system the town created from scratch, if you will, is the Hopewell North District.
Oh, Hopewell North.
And that's only because it was an EPA Superfund site. All of these other systems have come to the town either through the default of the operators, inefficient operation, and the citizens asking for the town to acquire them. Because in New York State, these private corporations can own and operate water and sewer systems, and in the event of default, the town is required to take them. We have no choice. So that many of these issues, many of them are holdovers from when the private developers got the approvals at the time in question. So I certainly think that all the work with the grants is starting to really give us the connectivity that we need for redundancy and the safety of everyone.
Absolutely. Any other comments or questions? No? All right, thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Thanks, George.
And next, we have Bowler, which is the engineer for Lidl U.S. operations. They're here to give us a proposal for the redevelopment of a portion of the East Campus over at East Campus of the old IBM East Campus, which is iPark now. The town board has made significant strides in the redevelopment, the revitalization of that entire site. Thank you to the board for all your assistance with our economic development policies that we have passed, and obviously they're very successful. In April, they will be coming before the town board with a public hearing with the planning board for a joint town board planning board public hearing, town board for the special redevelopment permit, and for the planning board for their site plan. And the planning board will have much more work to do with the site plan, but we do it to save some time. So tonight we have representatives here from Bowler. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Yes, my name's Steve Wilson. I'm with Bowler Engineer on behalf of the applicant, Lidl. They apologize for not being here tonight. They had a scheduling conflict, but they will be here for the April meeting. If you don't know Lidl, European-based grocer with a U.S. beachhead in Virginia. I think they probably established that about a decade ago. And now they have kind of spread out from that point into the Carolinas, Mid-Atlantic, and you may have seen them as far north as they have some sites up in Jersey. They're proposing to build this warehouse to assist with some of the existing stores they have, and also future growth through the Hudson Valley and the greater New York City area as they move forward. So I'll give you a quick overview of the project, answer any questions. I think we already mentioned what we're ultimately here for is the special economic development permit, and also the town board is also in charge of seeker ultimately for the project. So two things we ultimately need from you. So just to give you a quick lay of the land, so you know the park, here's a little bit dated photograph, but High Park Boulevard over here in the back, Frito-Lay's over here, and Amazon's down here in the lower part of the picture, and Eagle site sits way in the back with up along High Park Boulevard, about 70 currently exist on the property. So what is Lidl proposing? They're proposing to construct about an 820,000 square foot warehouse distribution center across the property. In the lay lane, here's I Park Boulevard here. Then we're on campus, East Drive is on the bottom, South Drive over there, and Shenandoah Road over here, which is served as the front door for the project, with all the truck traffic directed to this point, right here, kind of avoid that South Drive area for the most part.
Can you use the microphone?
Oh, sorry. How's that? Oh, pick it right up. And it doesn't come out. You got it. Okay. How's that? So moving left from right on the page, again, I mentioned this would be the front door for trucks. With the idea, we're going to have clockwise circulation for trucks across the property, all one way. Trucks coming in here, we first have a parking area for them, and then they move closer to the site as needed. There's a gated guard shack here to control access. Water tank proposed here as well for fire suppression. And then it moves around into the building, and the loading areas that are on both sides of the warehouse. We have a large DEC wetland in there that we're avoiding for the most part. We do have some buffer encroachments that we're currently working with DEC on. So again, circulating around the site in this clockwise fashion, and all the trucks would enter here and then travel out and leave the site, head probably for the most part back to the interstate. We have employee parking here, and with an entrance off of South Drive for them. This is the front door right about here. I'll show you some elevations in a minute. And the building itself, as I mentioned, it's about 820,000 square feet. It consists of essentially 3 levels, with this area in the back being the highest, this automation area, fully automated portion of the warehouse. This is one of the reasons we need the special economic development permit. It's 80 feet in height, which current code allows for 30 feet. And then you have the main portion of the building, which is about 60 feet. And then we have this 3-story employee charging place for all the equipment inside the building, forklifts, et cetera, all in this area with a front door right there. This is the employee parking here, and I Park Boulevard is along the back here.
What was the height of that part?
It's about 80, 60, and 70 at the front door. Oops. That just gives you another view looking more or less from the I Park Boulevard view of the property. Just one other physical thing to talk about. I'll talk a little bit about operations and some specifics about the warehouse. So from a seeker standpoint, the planning board is reviewing this, and this is also part of the seeker determination. There's currently a water tank that exists on the property. Right here, this is basically the building here. And there's currently a water tank that's going to be moved from here to here by the moment. It's not really part of the property, but it needs to happen before Lidl can start doing construction. So we will be part of the seeker determination, that portion of the project. So they'll be all kind of working in parallel with the projects. So the warehouse, as you probably expect, like most of them nowadays, it does operate 24/7. Generally, the busiest shift, busiest population on the site would generally be from like 5 a.m. to about 3 p.m. There would be anywhere from 200 to 300 people working on the site when that's where most of the activity is occurring. And there'd be smaller shifts down to as many as 30 people in that kind of that overnight 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. window to keep things up and running. Construction is hoped to start sometime in 2025, and it's probably about 2 years' worth of construction, so hopefully, maybe sometime in late 2026 or 2027, things will be fully up and operational. So we have, to date, been quite active with several of the boards. We have been front of the Fire Advisory Board and gotten a lot of significant feedback from them. We have been front of the Architectural Review Council twice. The elevations you see here are evolving as our discussions with them are ongoing. We're adding some more colors, racing stripe to kind of break up the massing of the building and give it a little bit more curb appeal, I guess you could say, on the portions of the building that face into the park. We're back in front of them to get people. And as been mentioned too, we've been in front of the planning board a few times, and we're back in front of them next week to continue the discussions there as well. So we've been doing a lot over the last few months.
What's the total population once you're in operation? What is it going to be?
Yeah, the busiest shift, that 5 a.m. to about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you could be anywhere from 200 to 300 people there, that window.
You know how many trucks?
Yeah, there'd probably be in the range of about 250 to 300 over the course of the day, with probably half of those in that 5 a.m. to noon window, that morning window.
And the rest of the shift, you foresee like 30 to 50 people?
Yeah, it'll drop down in the afternoon to less than, as the day goes on, it gets less and less, and until that overnight shift is down to about 30 people.
Are there any plans for refueling stations of any type on the site? for the
We're not
truck?
doing any of that on site, yeah.
Just had a quick question on some of the heights that you have here. You
Yep.
you talk about an automated warehouse, ASRS going in there, where it's all robotic, there's no
As I
people.
understand it, yes. You're a little outside my area, but yes, that's as I understand it, yes.
No, that's one of the concerns of the fire department, so we want to make sure,
Yep.
because those are really dense.
Yeah, we've met with
dense
them,
areas.
yep.
Okay.
As far as traffic, what is the plan for where you're going to avoid? Are you going to avoid Route 52 with truck traffic? And also employees' access to the site?
Yeah, again, I think our intent is, here's I Park Boulevard, so the idea is get them back to the interstate as quick as possible, exactly. So this being, through signage and education of employees, the intent is to get everybody over to this intersection and access the site from here, and the employees could access it from this point. So we can kind of avoid, to some degree, traffic on east and south drives.
And the majority of your population of workers, is it going to be on site or is it going to be mostly drivers out of the area?
Well, no, the employees, the numbers I was throwing out when there's, say, a couple hundred people working on site, I wasn't talking about the drivers. I was talking about warehouse workers at that point.
So your overall square foot is 820,000.
That's right.
Roughly. Is it platform-based? Like, are there platforms scattered throughout where it increases the square footage as well, or
Only, yeah, the 821 includes,
the 3 stories?
exactly, there's multiple stories in here. That square footage is included in that calculation.
Okay. And in the open area, is
Clear
are you gonna
span.
It's just wide open,
Yep.
high rack, tall racks? Okay.
Exactly.
Have you started any of the traffic studies yet?
Yes, we submitted a draft already to the town, but we are updating it because we have some revised. We're actually bringing the truck calculations down a little bit from our earlier studies. But even with the higher truck volumes, there's no impacts on levels of service on the intersections.
Okay.
There's a lot of
And
capacity there.
have you, I'm sure you guys have taken into account the trucks coming from Amazon as well as Frito-Lay.
Absolutely. We've gotten all the existing projects and proposed projects from staff to make sure that we have that all in our background growth estimates for the project, yes.
And I don't know if you have this information available, but there is always concerns from the community. How are the salaries of these employees, the range usually?
I'll be honest, I don't know that answer to that question, but I certainly can have it by the next time I see you.
And also, the pool of workers that you usually, your previous company engage in, are they usually local? Reason for asking is we have a little issue with one of the companies there now with the pool of workers that they're using. Are they going to be from the same area? My concern was before with the question exactly, are you going to be pulling locally or out of the area?
Well, I think to hire as many as we can locally, I think that would be the intent. I'm sure there'll be some job fairs early on as construction gets closer to the end to kind of encourage local employment. Absolutely.
Any other comments, questions? No? Like I said, they will be here for the full public hearing, where we can answer, they can answer all those questions and more. The public will also be here to ask their questions. At that time, they have to provide the answers as well. Yes.
You don't take votes at these workshop meetings or actions?
No.
So when, I guess we want to get seeker going, so you guys need to solicit for lead agency status. Is that something you have to vote on as a resolution to get that moving, or?
Yeah, didn't we vote on, we already
Oh, you did that already, I'm sorry. Okay,
Town board is already leading.
okay. Good enough.
We can check with Michelle as to when.
Okay. Great.
Sorry, I had one more question.
Sure.
So, I know you might not know this, but on the interior, are you going to have freezer space, cooler space?
Definitely, there's definitely a freezer portion of the building. If you look at the reason this portion of the building is not going to get any color, it's going to be all insulated metal panels. That is all freezer space. We don't want to absorb any heat, so yes.
That's a good chunk of that warehouse.
It is, yep.
And I'm just asking for the fire department, because
Yep.
they would need to know that stuff,
Yep.
so.
Lucky for you, the councilman was on the planning board.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So another interesting project, potentially. So this is very exciting sometimes. So like I mentioned earlier, for all the water projects that we discussed today and sewer that we will be having, we will be advertising for our public hearings. Also for that presentation that they gave for Lidl U.S. operations, that public hearing will be in April as well. That's a joint meeting with the planning board. We've done that before for the Amazon project and the Frito-Lay Pepsi project, so be on the lookout for that. And our next town board meeting is March 28th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I saw a werewolf with a Chinese menu in his hand, walking through the streets of Soho in the rain. He was looking for the place called Lee Ho Fooks, gonna get a big dish of beef chow mein. Ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo. Ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo. You hear him howling around your kitchen door. You better not let him in. night. Werewolves of London again. Ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo, ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo. He's the hairy-handed gent who ran amok in Kent. Lately he's been overheard in Mayfair. You better stay away from him. He'll rip your lungs out, Jim. I'd like to meet his tailor. Ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo, ahoo, werewolves of London. Ahoo. Well, I saw Lon Chaney walking with the Queen, doing the werewolves of London. I saw Lon Chaney Jr. walking with the Queen, doing the werewolves of London. I saw a werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's.